Okay, for the third lecture, we're going to start with this idea of, okay, what happens when that electricity going in saltatory conduction gets to the end of the axon? Does that electricity actually do anything at the end? And at the end of the axon, there's a little gap. That gap is called the synapse. And in a few situations, the electricity can actually travel across, but don't even worry about that now. In most situations, that does not happen. Instead, the things that happen are the electricity causes a release of a neurotransmitter, and this neurotransmitter, some of you may be familiar with some of these, that's what actually goes across. So we're going to start talking, instead of talking about, as we were in the previous lecture, electrophysiology. If you want to add that to your outline, that was all action potentials and electrophysiology. Now we're going to start talking about neurochemistry. So for neurochemistry, can you actually just eat a neurotransmitter? Can you just eat it and will it work? So, boy, I'm hungry for some serotonin. I'm feeling really depressed. Can I eat it? The answer is yes, you can. But the answer is, will it do you any good? And the answer is no. Serotonin, if you just eat it, will not get through your blood-brain barrier. So the first step in making a neurotransmitter is you have to synthesize it. So for serotonin, even though it sounds like I'm using an A in the word serotonin, eating a neurotransmitter will not do you any good because it won't be synthesized and go into your neurons. So serotonin, acetylcholine, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, you may have heard of this. You've got the blood-brain barrier. So the first step is from the diet, from the foods you eat, from the products you eat. My dad actually has Parkinson's disease. He's taking a product called L-Dopa. That helps make dopamine. So step one for neurochemistry is synthesis. You have to make it. After it is synthesized, step two is where you actually have to have it stored. And it's stored, if you look at the picture, one of the pictures I have there, I have a lot of pictures in there, don't I? It's stored to 7 processes in neurotransmitter action. It's stored in vesicles. The neurotransmitter is stored in vesicles. That's step two. Step 3, which is a critical step, is the release of the neurotransmitter. It turns out for a neurotransmitter to be released from the vesicle, this is where it meets up with the action potential. It's electrically dependent. The action potential comes down and causes the neurotransmitter to be released. So you need electricity there. It's electrically dependent. You also actually need calcium there as well. So step 3 is release, and that's where the electrophysiology story kind of maps to the neurochemistry story. The release of the neurotransmitter is called exocytosis, and I have a little picture of that for you too. Exocytosis basically means the vesicle fuses with the membrane and the neurotransmitter is released into the synapse. So that is step 3. After the neurotransmitter is released from the synapse, it travels across the synapse. And if you're familiar with Jim Morrison and the Doors, it gets onto to the other side. And if you don't know that, then you just think I'm being stupid here, which could be the case as well. So the neurotransmitter has to go through step 4, which is the neurotransmitter binds. So something like serotonin or acetylcholine, it binds. It never goes into the dendrite of the next neuron. It binds on the postsynaptic receptor, which is basically a receptor on the dendrite of the next neuron. And once it binds, the way that it actually binds, it opens up a channel. And there are 2 ways that a channel can be opened. One way is if the neurotransmitter binds and immediately opens up a channel. The second way is that if a neurotransmitter binds, it'll send out a second messenger, and the second messenger will open up a channel. The first mechanism where the neurotransmitter binds and opens up a channel is called ionotropic. That's where the ion channel opens immediately. A good example of this is glutamate. When glutamate binds as a neurotransmitter, it immediately opens up a channel for calcium. And calcium rushes in. It's called a calcium influx. And when calcium rushes in, it'll actually cause a very positive charge postsynaptically. We call the charge postsynaptically, instead of saying it's depolarization, it's called an EPSP, excitatory postsynaptic potential. I know I'm using a lot of verbs here, a lot of words. Sorry about that. I know a fair amount about neuroscience. So a neurotransmitter binds and opens up a channel. That's one mechanism, ionotropically. Metabotropically is where a neurotransmitter binds and then will send out a second messenger. This will take a little more time to happen, but it'll last a little bit longer. So we have this. There's a little video for you to watch if you want to. Let me give you those examples again. So glutamate. When glutamate binds, it opens up a channel, and the channel is a channel for calcium. Calcium, Ca++, comes in and will lead to something called an excitatory postsynaptic potential, EPSP. And that'll cause the neuron for the next dendrite to get very positive and have another action potential. But let's say there's another neurotransmitter. Let's say it's, why is my mind blocking? GABA. GABA is another neurotransmitter. It's called Y-aminobutyric acid, GABA. When GABA binds, it actually opens up not a chlorine channel, but a chloride channel. And chloride is Cl negative. And when chloride binds, it'll cause not an EPSP, but an IPSP, an inhibitory postsynaptic potential. And when this actually occurs, this will tend to stop more action potentials from happening. And you might say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, when you take a drug like Xanax, Xanax is used for anxiety. And it turns out that there's not enough GABA working in your brain when you're having anxiety. So the idea that you take Xanax and that'll cause a chloride influx, that actually tends to help people with anxiety-based disorders and calm down their mind. So we have IPSPs and EPSPs. If you watch the little video, it should help. Last step here, and then we'll wrap this one up, is inactivation. After the neurotransmitter binds, it'll stop working. And there are two ways that this will happen. One way is enzymes come in and destroy the neurotransmitter. The main enzymes are called MAOs, monoamine oxidase. And so they'll come in, and if you have serotonin or dopamine or norepinephrine, they will destroy it. The other way that you stop a neurotransmitter from working is it basically gets reabsorbed presynaptically, basically recycled. So it's called reuptake. And those are the ways that we actually work with neurotransmitters. So hopefully this makes good sense for you. You can take good detailed outline notes, add the agenda in, and this makes sense. Thanks. Bye-bye.